It's 1 o'clock here in Greece, in Athens. We've just got back from the game, and a bit of a reflection on the game itself. Well, we were warned this is likely to have been the hardest game of the group stage, and it proved to be so. Olympiacos 2, West Ham United 1. Got to start with the team news first because that was bizarre. I think we were all a little bit baffled when we saw the lineup with Danny Ings in the lineup. I guess we expected most of the team to be announced tonight. Like Fabianski was meant to be in goal, but he was ill, so Areola stepped in, and you kind of expected the back line with Kera, Mavropanos, Ogbonna and Emerson. A strong back line. You know, Emerson is suspended for the game against Everton, so I'm not surprised that he played. And then in the middle of the park, you looked at, what do we have? Ben Rama, Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Soucek, and you kind of thought, that's okay as well. And then up front, you expected Fornals to play, and then all of a sudden you saw the name Danny Ings on the team sheet, and you scratched your head and you just wondered why. Now look, there's two ways of looking at this. You know, you don't want to tire players out, so you want to try and keep some of your best players for the game, for the Premier League game. But at the same time, you don't want to put out too weak a side in order to put yourself under pressure. So the mixture of players, we kind of looked at it and there was a little bit of apprehension, certainly with Danny Ings. I don't know, we speculated on maybe Ings might be playing, Moyes may have decided to play two up front, either with Ben Rama or Kudus or Fornals to support Ings. But that wasn't the case. It was still a sort of a 4-5-1, 4-3-3 kind of formation with Ings primarily alone up front. So the team selection was definitely wrong. And I know I'm no expert, everyone has an opinion, but I think a lot of people looked at that lineup and kind of thought, I'm not so sure. Maybe it was doing Olympiacos a little bit of a disservice by thinking that they might have been too easy. When you play away from home and you want to get a positive result, I guess you kind of try and put your best team forward, and that didn't happen. Then the tactics were wrong, the usual tactics that David Moyes plays, one up front, etc. But we were doing. Here's the interesting thing: the first 10-15 minutes of the game, we were watching it, and I was thinking to myself, we're beginning to look like a really good European side. We're composed, we're calm. We're not allowing anything to stress us. The atmosphere, I've got to give credit where credit's due to the Olympiacos fans. They created a really epic, kind of hostile environment, but we rode that for the first 10-15 minutes and we looked comfortable, really comfortable. And then the pressure started to be applied as we moved into the game. And the minute Olympiacos started to apply pressure, all of a sudden we started to mispass the ball, couldn't find our players, had no rhythm in our movement, we started to look a little bit fidgety, etc. And then of course the goal that they scored, what was it, in half an hour, just over past half an hour, their player just ran straight through the middle of the park. No one stopped him, he just ran through and struck the ball, and all of a sudden, out of kind of nowhere, we were 1-0 down. Yes, they had more of the ball, yes, they were applying more pressure, but all of a sudden we were 1-0 down, and then the screw was turned. And then, just on the stroke of half time, really unfortunate, mistimed clearance by Ogbonna, just sliced off his foot, and it went 2-0. 2-0 at half time. We thought, okay, then, David Moyes is going to make changes at half time to try and get us back into the game. And when we were watching the subs warming up during half time, we realised that they were all warming up. Normally, when you're going to make half time substitutions, you normally have one or two players that you're going to have in the dressing room with the players that were just on, in order for those players who might be coming on at half time to hear the tactics, the changes that Moyes wanted, etc. But no, all the subs were warming up at half time on the pitch, which made you realise, hang on a minute, Moyes isn't making changes here at half time. Maybe he thinks 2-0 is okay. And lo and behold, the same team came out, and of course, nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. We didn't have the upper hand. We didn't have any momentum. We just did the same as we did in the first half. And it was beginning to be a little bit tragic, a Greek tragedy, if you pardon the pun. And then Moyes finally made changes. I don't know what it was, 55 minutes or so. And, on came Paqueta. And I think Fornals went off, and on came Bowen. I can't remember who for, but Paqueta and Bowen came on, and Antonio as well for Ings, and you thought, okay, we're going to have some momentum here. But even that didn't change. Paqueta saw a lot of the ball in the first sort of 10 minutes or so that he came on, but every time he got it, he mispassed it. He tried to do his little tricks, and kept losing the ball, etc. And we're thinking, what on earth is going on? The momentum of the first half seemed to have sort of rubbed into the players that came on. And then other changes happened, Alvarez coming on. And Alvarez is probably the only player you can give any credit to who really tried to sort of change the way we were playing, trying to get stuck in there, etc. And then the game went through a bit of a scrappy moment. There were just mistimed challenges from both teams. There was all the theatrics from the Greek team, wasting time, and they succeeded. They wasted an awful lot of time going down at the brush of a feather, which broke the game up. Their tactics worked. They sort of broke our momentum for any momentum that we had, and then we finally got in it, but all too late. Like the last, Paqueta scored a beautiful goal. He's such a frustrating player. Whenever he does something beautiful, you go, wow, what a goal. Superb strike. But that kind of made up for all the really poor passing he was making. And that Souček was mistiming his passes as well. Everything was short and nothing penetrative, etc. But in the last sort of 6-7 minutes of normal time, and then in the 8 minutes of added time, we finally woke up. But it was too late. That should have happened way earlier than, the last few minutes of the game. And had we scored an equaliser, it would have been very undeserved. We would have taken it, of course, but it would have been very undeserved. So frustrating, really, to be honest with you. Frustrating because of the team selection. Frustrating because there was the tactics were wrong. I think we probably didn't give credit to Olympiacos as much as we should have, probably through the team selection, etc. And frustrating, there was no penetration. We had nothing up front, as usual. You didn't expect it either. With the greatest of respect to Danny Ings, I know he's been a great striker in the Premier League, but he was once a great striker. He no longer is. The whole game was frustrating, and like I said, if we'd have managed to get an equaliser, it would have been, get out of jail card that we didn't deserve. I don't get, the game on Thursday the game on Sunday we played against Villa. I put that more than anything down to the players on the pitch that just no movement, passing was poor, etc. And a lot of it was down to the poor display of the players. As much it was a poor display of players today against Olympiacos, you've got to also say that David Moyes, his team selection really let us down, and the tactics let us down as well. And there's an argument, isn't there? It's what do you do? Do you always put your best team out and then run the risk of being accused of running players into the ground, etc., playing them too much? Or do you do what Moyes has been doing and mixing the players up, putting a few players that you would normally see in the Premier League lineup in there, mixed up with some of the squad players? I think it's a difficult one to answer. The manager's going to get criticised either way. There's many in the camp that say put your best team out, win the game, and then make changes. And I get that as well. But then there are others that will say you've got to rest players, otherwise they're going to be knackered for the next Premier League game that comes up. So it's a bit of a lose-lose situation in that. What this result and what this performance has demonstrated tonight sorry, tonight. You're going to be watching this in the morning. So on Thursday night, what it's demonstrated is that we still have a lack of proper squad depth. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I did a show on Monday night talking about the 400 odd million that Moyes has spent on 20 odd players throughout his 3.5-4 year tenure. And we've gotten to this stage and we're still lacking 3-4 players maybe in the squad that can really build up a strong squad. It's frustrating because there were players who were put out there in the game against Olympiacos who didn't show up. Fornals had a really, really poor game, and I'm a Fornals fan. Ings, as we know, is not the player that he once was. Souček was poor, and various others were poor. Mavropanos, even he was mistiming his passes, etc. He gave the ball away quite a lot. Normally, you'd look at him and you'd expect him to be pretty good. We've seen a lot of good stuff from him. Ogbonna, love him. I've loved Ogbonna for years, but he's finished. You know, he's just like, you can't have a player with the greatest of respect like Ogbonna in this squad anymore, and we're going to struggle again because it means that come the summer, or come January and come the summer, we're not only going to be looking at players that are going to leave. We're not only going to be looking at discarding players that we don't want, but we're also going to be looking at having to replace players, who are aging. And I know a few people said in the show the other night when I said, the problem about aging players, and some viewers said, well, no, players are, it doesn't matter how old they are. If they're good, they're good. Well, it does matter. If you're playing against highly competitive football in the Premier League, and also you want to stay in Europe, you've got to have a decent squad. Frustrating, absolutely frustrating. We didn't deserve anything from this game. I still think we'll win the group, ironically. But Olympiacos are going to be buoyed by this win tonight. You could see how much it meant to them at the end of the final whistle. And they're going to come to London in a few weeks' time, and they're going to fancy their chances. They're going to fancy an upset. And why not? We're going to have to be playing really well. And this now puts more pressure on Moyes when it comes to team selections moving forward. We've got Everton at the weekend. We're going to be missing Emerson anyway. So there'll be at least one change. But you would hope, people ask, what about Kudus? How did he play tonight? He didn't really do very well, to be quite honest with you. He was pretty quiet when Bowen came on. He didn't really do much. He wasn't seeing much of the ball. There was a lot of it going through Paqueta, but he just wasn't, he had another poor game today, Paqueta. Absolutely superb goal, but poor performance all round. So when it comes to Sunday, people are going to, I know what people are going to be crying out for. Play Kudus, play him. But if Moyes does decide to play Kudus, from the start on Sunday, it's got to be for Souček, because I don't think he's going to be dropping Antonio. All right, anyway, be giving more updates on the channel over the next few days, so look out for those. Going to be up very early. It's now 1:15 in the morning here in Greece. Got to be up at 4:30 in order to catch our flight home. I'm going to be sleeping all day on Friday. Anyway, have a good day, and I'll see you all soon.